For decades, we thought we knew what was down there. We thought it was a cold, silent world of shadows and volcanic rock, but recently, a team of dedicated scientists decided to peel back the blue veil.
Deep beneath the crystal blue waters of Crater Lake lies a hidden world that challenges everything we thought we knew about life. For centuries, this ancient volcanic crater was believed to be a cold, dark wilderness where little could survive. But when scientists explored its depths, they uncovered something astonishing. Nearly 2,000 feet below the surface, life was thriving in complete darkness. No sunlight, no plants, just organisms fueled by the lake's unique chemistry. Could this secret ecosystem reveal how life survives in the most extreme environments and offer clues about where life might exist elsewhere in the universe? The unreachable depths. Crater Lake's floor is a place that defies easy exploration. For most of human history, no one knew what existed beneath its mirror blue surface, nearly 2,000 feet below. The water is astonishingly clear, but that clarity comes with an unforgiving, cold, and crushing pressure. Beyond a certain depth, it becomes a realm so dark and inhospitable that it was widely believed to be lifeless. An untouched abyss no human could reach or survive in. Early attempts to understand the lake's depth were crude at best. Scientists once measured the bottom by dropping heavy weights tied to long ropes, hoping to feel the lakebed through a cable. Imagine trying to map an entire hidden world simply by guessing where the ground lies. Over time, technology improved, but the environment remained a daunting barrier. Even skilled divers were limited by the frigid temperatures and immense pressure deep below the surface. So scientists took a new approach. Machines. Robots tethered to surface vessels could dive where no person could go, equipped with lights, cameras, and sensors. It was these mechanical explorers that would finally shine a light into the unknown. As the cameras descended, the water shifted through shades of blue, fading from bright turquoise near the top to inky black at the lake's deepest reaches. And for a long time, the footage lived up to expectations, empty, silent, unyielding. But then, past 1,000 feet below the surface, something changed. The robotic eye caught hints of color on the volcanic floor, warm, glowing patches that didn't belong in this dark, cold desert. At first, researchers hesitated, unsure if it was sediment or an illusion. As the camera drew closer, those hints revealed themselves to be golden mats sprawling across the lakebed in vast colonies, alive and vibrant in a place thought dead. This discovery did more than challenge assumptions. It started to kind of rewrite the story of where and how life can survive. The deep basin wasn't this barren tomb we assumed. Something was thriving in near total darkness and in near freezing water. Scientists watched in silence, their surprise sort of turning into wonder. Still, at that point, they had only seen a small piece of what might be waiting in the depths. But then the questions, they came fast. Like, how could life exist here with no food coming in from outside? What kind of energy source was powering those odd golden communities? The lake has no rivers or streams feeding it, so how could a self-sustaining ecosystem even arise at the bottom of a mountain crater? The answers to these puzzles would slowly unfold as the researchers pushed deeper into this alien place. Even the machines used were more than just tools. They were basically the eyes and hands for a new era of exploration in freshwater science, narrowing that gap between the impossible and the known. But understanding what happened here didn't come from technology alone. It needed a fresh look at the lake's origins and also a rethinking of what life can be. And those origins? They're as fiery as the depths are cold. Before the real secrets of Crater Lake could be grasped, scientists had to revisit the tale of its violent birth because life here wasn't simply there. It was born from extraordinary geological forces, transitioning now to the fiery past that set the stage for this frozen mystery deep inside a mountain's wound. Birth in fire and ice. Nearly 8,000 years ago, a towering mountain stood where Crater Lake lies today, a glacier-crowned peak called Mount Mazama. It was no ordinary mountain. Deep beneath its surface bubbled a vast magma chamber, a pressurized cauldron of molten rock capped with solid stone. Then came a volcanic eruption so massive, it defies easy comparison, one that violently reshaped this landscape forever. Instead of blowing the mountain apart, the eruption emptied the magma chamber beneath, and the summit collapsed inward, leaving behind a giant hollow called a caldera. This vast crater, smoky and scarred, became one of the largest volcanic depressions in North America. Over centuries, the Earth slowly healed its wounds, as rain and snow accumulated to fill the crater with water. But unlike most lakes, Crater Lake has no rivers flowing in or out. Every drop in its deep basin is rain or snow that slowly gathered and settled, and basically became a giant bowl of almost pure, distilled water. This extraordinary cleanliness is why it shows that stunning blue color and unmatched clarity. Sunlight manages to go down hundreds of feet before it really starts fading out into darkness. Still, that same purity also meant there was almost nothing to nourish life in the lake's depths. Without minerals or organic matter washing in from the surrounding slopes, the lake was expected to be a sort of underworld, a water desert beneath its bright surface. Somewhere nutrients just don't build up. Most biologists figured the deep water and sediment layers would be empty of living things, stark, kind of dead-looking, and barren. This volcanic start also means life at Crater Lake deals with extremes that most regular freshwater places just don't. The water near the bottom stays barely above freezing, and the pressure is enormous. The whole system is so cut off that it's treated as an ecological island, meaning it's separated from outside effects that normally sustain most aquatic life. So yes, it's refined, but also, honestly, a little scary and thin on options. Getting the volcanic origin and the lake's special water chemistry helps explain why discovering life at great depths was such a surprise. Organisms here had to push past challenges beyond just cold or darkness. They needed to manage without nutrients, without a flowing food chain coming from the sunlit surface or from land. And it's exactly right there that the story's mystery starts getting deeper. Because, despite what decades of research suggested, the lake's depths were not an empty tomb. Beneath that vast blue surface lay a secret that challenged what scientists thought possible, forcing them to reconsider the very basics of life's survival. To understand how this could be, we need to explore how some organisms feed without sunlight at all. Life without sunlight. Almost all life on Earth depends on sunlight, directly or indirectly. Plants capture solar energy to create food through photosynthesis, and virtually every animal either eats plants or consumes other animals that do. But what happens when sunlight never reaches? How can life persist in total darkness where photosynthesis is impossible? Scientists had long known of ecosystems in the deep ocean thriving through a different process called chemosynthesis. Instead of sunlight, these organisms use chemical energy from reactions involving minerals and gases escaping from beneath the Earth's crust. Giant hydrothermal vents deep on the ocean floor pump out mineral-rich water that forms the base of a unique food web, supporting life in perpetual night. Until recently, this chemosynthetic life seemed isolated to those extreme oceanic hotspots, thousands of miles from any land, under crushing pressures and temperatures. The idea that similar processes could occur in a freshwater lake at high elevation seemed almost unimaginable. Yet Crater Lake turned that assumption upside down. Deep below its surface, the robotic camera revealed vast mats glowing a rusty golden color. Upon closer examination, these were colonies of iron-oxidizing bacteria. Instead of feeding on sunlight or decaying plants, these bacteria derived energy chemically by oxidizing minerals like iron seeping slowly from volcanic rock. They effectively ate the volcano itself. This form of life is powered by a process called chemosynthesis, a concept as radical to some freshwater scientists as it is fascinating. It means life can run on geology, not just solar energy. In a lake formed by fire and ice, life had found a foothold on stone and chemistry alone, turning barren rock into a living landscape. The discovery reframed the boundaries of biology. If bacteria could thrive here, clinging to mineral-rich sediments, then the potential for life to exist in similarly dark, cold, and chemically fueled environments elsewhere both on Earth and beyond, expanded dramatically. The familiar sunlit-based food webs are just one of many possible systems. Yet these bacteria were only the beginning. Among them lived creatures that required more complex food sources, hinting at a whole ecosystem previously unknown beneath this mountain lake. The interplay of geology and biology told a story far richer and stranger than anyone had anticipated, beckoning researchers to look even deeper. As science peeled back the layers of Crater Lake's hidden depths, a new chapter in our understanding of life's resilience was just beginning to be written. And what remained in the darkness was more surprising still. The story was no longer about absence, but abundance in a place that had seemed impossible. The lake's secret life was waiting to be revealed fully, layer by layer. The iron bacteria forest. When the camera edged closer to the lake floor, the golden patches weren't just colors or shadows, they were immense colonies of iron-oxidizing bacteria. These bacteria formed sprawling, layered mats that stretched across the volcanic silt like vast, rumpled blankets. Their surfaces had a fibrous, woven texture and seemed to ripple faintly as the vehicle's subtle movements disturbed the water around them. The sheer size of these mats was staggering. Some were as wide as dinner plates, while others stretched for yards. It was hard to believe these were single-celled organisms, yet here they were, building intricate structures visible to the naked eye in the darkest depths of the lake. Biologists later described these bacterial communities as cathedrals of life, giant and complex, without the need for sunlight or organic debris. The color, rust and honey hues, revealed what they were feeding on: iron. These bacteria harness chemical energy by oxidizing dissolved iron seeping from beneath the lake bed. Rather than relying on decaying plants or photosynthesis, they thrive chemically by eating the volcano itself. This process, called chemosynthesis, allowed life to flourish in a place previously thought biologically barren. This discovery stunned researchers because it extended our understanding of where life can thrive. Before this, iron-oxidizing bacteria were mostly associated with oceanic hydrothermal vents thousands of miles from shore, in crushing, pitch-black depths far from human reach. Finding the same process in a freshwater mountain lake was like discovering an alien ecosystem in our backyard. It challenged the idea that sunlight, or organic runoff, was necessary to fuel entire ecosystems. The bacterial mats turned out to be the foundation of a previously hidden biological community. Moreover, these mats were not scattered or rare but widespread and dense, carpeting large areas of the lake bottom. They formed thick colonies that seemed to pulse with faint movement under magnification, alive in a way no one had anticipated. These microbial layers created an environment that could support more complex life even below the sunlight's reach. It was a revelation that rewrote entire chapters about what freshwater ecosystems could be. Where the iron these bacteria rely on comes from goes back to the volcano's rough, violent old days. Minerals and iron slowly seep out of volcanic rocks and sediments, kind of like a slow leak, powered by the ancient magma chamber under Mount Mazama. This consistent chemical trickle keeps feeding the bacteria without pause, so they have the energy to build and maintain those huge structures. It's an ecosystem that runs not on sunlight, but on the planet's own inner heat, a place where chemistry does the job that photosynthesis would normally do. Crater Lake's iron bacteria mats, honestly, they stand for more than just microbial life. They are living evidence that another sort of biology can settle in and hold on even when conditions are brutal. They make the invisible kind of visible, creating a real, tangible ecosystem that feels nothing like what you see in a usual lake. These mats may be the starting line for understanding how life adapts and actually flourishes in complete darkness, kept going only by bare earth chemistry. Once scientists saw this, the questions sort of multiplied with no mercy. What other organisms could be living in and around the bacterial mats, using them as shelter or food? Could bigger life forms be hiding where people don't expect, basically in plain sight, sustained by this chemical feast? And if there are, then what would they even look like, living in freezing dark water with no sun at all? In the end, The bacterial mats opened a view of a world that was never really on the table before. A hidden kind of forest down at the base of a mountain lake made out of iron and chemistry, fed by raw power from deep below. But the bacteria were only the first chapter, because the camera then showed that this iron forest wasn't just microbes doing their thing. Life was beginning to form in unusual ways, assembling an ecosystem far richer than anyone had dared imagine. Even in these alien depths, creatures large enough to see with the naked eye were navigating the golden mats beneath the dark water. Unexpected animal life. Amid the glowing bacterial mats, the camera began to reveal tiny but distinctly moving shapes. At first, these pale specks seemed like drifting silt caught in the vehicle's light beam. But then one moved deliberately against the current, confirming what no one had anticipated. Animals were alive here too. Creatures of various forms were grazing the bacterial mats, inhabiting a world completely starved of sunlight and external nutrients. Closer observation showed thin, translucent worms weaving through the mats like invisible threads moving slowly across a pasture. Their movement suggested feeding behavior as they grazed on the bacterial colonies. Alongside them, minute crustaceans with armored bodies clustered in small groups. These tiny creatures were almost invisible except for the faint shadows they cast against the golden mats. But their presence proved that life here was more than microbial. Most astonishing to biologists were the delicate pale shapes anchored to volcanic stones, filter-feeding sponges never before seen in freshwater environments, especially not at these depths. These sponges adapted to extraordinary pressure, conditions that would crush a human chest instantly. Motionless but alive, they filtered the still cold water for whatever nutrients it contained, forming an ancient and patient quarry in this strange underwater desert. This diverse assemblage transformed the perception of Crater Lake's deep basin. The image of a lifeless abyss gave way to a layered ecosystem, an interconnected web where bacteria, worms, crustaceans, and sponges coexisted and depended on one another. The lake floor had evolved into one of the coldest, darkest, and most isolated ecosystems on the continent, functioning entirely on chemical energy from the earth below. Those watching the monitor screens were struck by the contrast between expectation and reality. They had anticipated barren volcanic silt, a slow drift through emptiness. Instead, they saw a thriving community, vibrant despite crushing pressure and nearly freezing temperatures. This was no biological desert. It was an ecosystem shaped by chemistry and resilience. It forced scientists to rethink what was possible for life in extreme environments. The presence of these animals also raised new puzzles. How do such creatures obtain enough nutrients to survive in such isolation? What sustains the entire food web when external sources like rivers or decomposing plants are missing? The answer surely required looking beyond the surface and following the trail of organic material and chemical energy deeper and higher. As the robotic vehicle explored, it became clear that the lake was not a barren basin, but a complex habitat with every layer supporting life. From the iron bacteria mats to the worms and sponges, this was an ecosystem unlike any documented in freshwater lakes, a system where life had adapted to conditions once thought too extreme. It made the unknown wonders of the deep sea suddenly feel much closer. Yet even with this revelation, many of the mechanisms underlying these communities remained mysterious. The link between surface life and these strange denizens of the depths hinted at unseen connections. Connections scientists were only beginning to unravel. The story of life at the bottom of Crater Lake was just beginning to unfold. Beneath the calm, impossibly blue surface, a hidden world of biological complexity was waiting, shaped by forces both ancient and ongoing, resilience against the odds. This intricate web of life set the stage for uncovering what actually fed the depths, a clue that floated quietly on the surface, guiding the ecosystem below. The Old Man of the Lake. High above the lake's hidden mysteries, a centuries-old wooden sentinel drifted silently on the surface. Locals called it the Old Man of the Lake. A full hemlock trunk bleached pale by sun and years, standing upright like a fence post in the impossibly blue water. For over 100 years, this floating tree had intrigued visitors and guides alike. resisting the pull of gravity, refusing to sink, and bobbing gently as winds carried it from bay to bay. Despite its oddity, it was long treated as little more than a scenic curiosity. Yet, as scientists studied the lake's deep bacterial mats and unseen animals, the old man began to suggest something far more important, a clue to the puzzle of how life could persist in such a nutrient-poor environment. It wasn't alone. The lake constantly collected wood and debris from the surrounding forests, fallen branches, bark, needles, and entire trunks torn loose in storms, drifting, then eventually sinking into the depths. This slow, steady delivery of organic matter became an essential supply line to the otherwise isolated basin below. Unlike the stubborn old man, which remained afloat for decades, most of this wood eventually lost its buoyancy. Over years, it tipped and sank slowly, passing through layers of deep indigo and black water until resting on the volcanic floor. There, these sunken trunks transformed from floating forest to feast, delivering carbon and organic nutrients directly to the deep lake ecosystem. It was a natural conveyor belt, linking the living world above with the hidden community below. Biologists started to see the lake this way, like a vertical ecosystem powered by this rare and tightly packed gift coming from the surface, the gift of wood. Bacteria moved in on the submerged timber, forming mats full of microbes that oxidize iron, while worms and tiny crustaceans showed up to graze. So, in a place sort of starved of life's normal ingredients, these sunk trunks became a real, almost singular meal, keeping going a layered web of organisms where it might otherwise have been impossible. That idea shifted how researchers pictured Crater Lake's depths. Life there wasn't just some odd, isolated incident. It was part of a slow, ongoing routine sustained by the nearby forest, plus the lake's odd geology. The old man of the lake, which people sometimes treat like a simple curiosity, was actually only one component in that cycle still waiting for the last drop. And eventually, even it would lean, tip, sink, and feed the deep in future years, keeping that same rhythm running in the dark. Having this wooden conveyor belt helped ease a few questions, but it also opened others. Could the occasional sinking of wood by itself account for the huge, thick bacterial mats that get observed? At first, the answer looked like no. The sheer size and density of life down there suggested a steady energy source, more dependable than drifting logs. Once that clicked, the whole project pushed deeper, both literally and in the mindset. Scientists also understood that the deep community wasn't living just on fallen wood. It was drawing, too, on another kind of energy and nutrients that lasts longer. That source was located under the lake floor itself, something still alive inside the mountain's internal framework, quietly running a hidden realm of life beneath everything. That source was waiting in the darkest, coldest corners of the crater, where sunlight had not touched for thousands of years, but where warmth still flickered, silent and unseen by human eyes. The hydrothermal connection. As the submersible descended to nearly 2,000 feet, a surprising shift occurred. In an environment where the water temperature had remained barely above freezing, sensors detected a faint but undeniable rise in heat. This subtle warming heralded a remarkable discovery: a hydrothermal vent, a mineral-rich chimney rising from the volcanic floor like a dark, narrow tower no taller than a person. From its open top, a shimmering, warm distortion bubbled quietly into the icy depths. This was no ordinary feature. It was an active vent, seeping warm water infused with iron, sulfur, and dissolved minerals drawn from the magma chamber still alive beneath Mount Mazama. The vent was the engine powering the entire deep ecosystem. Every hour, every day, it released a steady flow of chemical energy, feeding the iron-oxidizing bacterial mats that in turn supported worms, crustaceans, and sponges. The volcano that had once collapsed in fire was still breathing, nourishing life from below. The mats clustered thickest around the vent, draping the rocky substrate like glowing golden carpets. The translucent worms and the tiny armored crustaceans thrived near this oasis of warmth and sustenance, forming a dense community teeming in the crushing pressure and pitch-dark water. The vent created a nurturing habitat where chemistry replaced sunlight at the base of a surprisingly complex food web. This discovery also explained a long-standing mystery about Crater Lake's climate. Despite heavy winter snows burying the crater's rim under decades of ice and snow, the surface of the lake rarely freezes solid. Although the vast depth and huge volume slow the cooling process, the vent's geothermal heat continuously trickles upward, maintaining water temperatures just above freezing and preventing full ice lock. The mountain that had destroyed itself in eruption was now, in an unexpected way, protecting the lake it had created. Watching the vent illuminated a kind of profound moment of realization in the control room. Like here, in a freshwater lake that's easily reached by road, there was a system running on basically the same geological and chemical principles that keep alive the most alien and extreme ecosystems you can find way down in the ocean. The vents were the missing puzzle piece, linking life in the crater to geothermal energy beneath the Earth's crust. This new look made Crater Lake shift from a natural wonder into a living laboratory, kind of a working model for extreme ecosystems on Earth, and also whatever might be going on beyond it. The vents showed how organisms can flourish in the dark, powered by rock and chemical reactions, not sunlight. And it gave scientists a blueprint for where to look next, not only down in the lake, but far out across the solar system too. Now, as remote missions plan to probe icy moons like Europa and Enceladus, where subsurface oceans sit hidden beneath miles of ice, Crater Lake works as an accessible analog. In other words, researchers can test instruments, track biological signatures, and figure out how communities might organize themselves around hydrothermal vents far from the sun. The lake becomes this local view into places that are honestly pretty alien. With that geothermal heart still beating under the cold depths, Crater Lake's story got even more compelling. It was more than just a monument to destruction and resilience. It turned into a beacon pointing humanity toward the search for life in the darkest corners of the universe. And as the camera slowly pulled back from the vent's glowing plume, the question lingered. If life could thrive here, how many other hidden oases might await discovery, both on Earth and beyond? Implications beyond Earth. The discoveries at Crater Lake reach far beyond one volcanic basin in Oregon. Deep beneath its surface, organisms survive in near-total darkness, drawing energy from chemical reactions linked to volcanic activity. This challenges the idea that sunlight is essential for life and raises a remarkable question. Could similar ecosystems exist elsewhere in the solar system? Astrobiologists see possible parallels with Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus. Both worlds are believed to contain vast oceans hidden beneath thick shells of ice. Sunlight cannot reach those waters, but their rocky seafloors may produce heat and mineral-rich fluids through hydrothermal activity. Crater Lake provides scientists with a nearby example of how life might survive under those conditions. Bacteria living around chemically active areas demonstrate that organisms can use minerals and gases as energy sources. Similar processes could potentially support microbial communities beneath the frozen surfaces of distant moons. Because of this, extreme environments on Earth are valuable testing grounds for future space exploration. Scientists can study how microorganisms leave behind chemical signatures and develop instruments capable of detecting those signs. Lessons learned from Crater Lake may help guide missions searching for evidence of life in alien oceans millions of miles away. The lake's depths are also far more complex than they first appear. Researchers have identified places with unusual chemistry and microbial mats growing across volcanic rock. Different depths make separate habitats, shaped by shifts in temperature, pressure, oxygen, and available minerals. So rather than one single uniform place, the lake floor starts to look like a loose set of hidden biological islands. These organisms might also give hints about Earth's earliest life. Some scientists suggest that the first living cells could have originated in dark, chemically dense zones, driven by the planet's own internal heat. If that idea is right, microbes living around volcanic features today may feel like older, primitive forms of life from billions of years ago. Still, Crater Lake's unusual ecosystem is a bit fragile too. Environmental changes and even introduced species could disrupt habitats that formed in isolation over long stretches. Protecting the lake is therefore important not just for conservation, but for scientific discovery as well, kind of both at the same time. And as humanity prepares to explore oceans beneath extraterrestrial ice, Crater Lake gives a strong lesson. Life may not need sunlight, comfort, warmth, or familiar surroundings. It can adapt to darkness, pressure, and volcanic chemistry, and survive where existence once seemed impossible. Its tucked-away depths nudge us to examine Earth more closely, while widening our search for life far beyond it. Crater Lake is more than a scenic wonder. It's a living laboratory revealing how life thrives against the odds, powered by fire beneath the ice. This deep, dark ecosystem expands our understanding of where life can exist, both here on Earth and across the universe. If this journey into the lake's mysterious depths fascinated you, please like and subscribe for more stories uncovering our planet's hidden secrets. Then, dive straight into the next incredible mystery by watching the video appearing on your screen now.